Spartacus asked, what are your honest thoughts on Hassan Piker?
I think
What are your thoughts in regards to the political success of Nick Fuentes and the America First movement?
If the U.S. elected the president and vice president from opposing parties, where the candidate that loses takes the vice president seat of the candidate that got the majority, do you think that our government would operate better and potentially lessen the political divide that we currently have?
So, hey everyone, I'm Eris, owner of Calliopean Club. Like Destiny, I'm also a VTuber, so you should follow me on Twitch. I want to welcome everyone to CC. So we're a community of people who love to learn, debate, and hang out in general. So Destiny, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name's Destiny. I do politics and philosophy on YouTube and Twitch, and I'm generally considered left-leaning, like a social democrat, we'll say that.
So, Destiny, I was wondering what your opinion was on the efficacy of H.R. 1. Do you think it can realistically pass with people like Joe Manchin saying he definitely is in no time in the future thinking of abolishing the filibuster? Or do you see it more as virtue signaling right now?
My understanding is that unless he's changed, I think Joe Biden has said specifically that he doesn't want to abolish the filibuster. So, I mean, if you don't have top-down drive for it and you've got like resistance in the party against it, I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Z had a question. Do you believe the government should only be able to collect information on someone after they are suspected for a crime?
I mean, well, that's really broad. Like, what type of information? Are we saying like... Wait, I need more specifics, because like Social Security collects information on you, or like the... tobacco, food, and firearm, FTA, I think firearms, tobacco, alcohol, they can collect information on you when you file forms for purchasing guns. I'm gonna assume maybe they just mean in terms of like no-fly list or like FBI stuff. Can they collect information? Should they be able to collect? I'm gonna assume that's the only thing I can think of that they might mean, right?
Probably.
In that case, I mean, I'm not ideologically opposed to it. I think it would just come down to like to what ends up being like effective. If like if monitoring certain people like ahead of time gives you the ability to prevent certain crimes, or the intelligence is valuable enough that it prevents certain crimes, I'm probably okay with that.
Hype Troller asked, do you think that pollsters need to step back and recalibrate before polling issues because they have been so far off recently?
I think the pollsters are generally pretty on. I think that people just like run really far away with their projections. People will see like a 52-48 poll and they'll just assume it's a 100% foregone conclusion that their candidate is either going to win or lose. So, but I think for the most part, I think pollsters do a decent job.
Hova 1002 asked, why does there seem to be so much less pushback on circumcision in the US compared to female genital mutilation or other controversial medical procedures? Can you see circumcision on infants and minors being criminalized in the US in the future?
I mean, hopefully at some point it is. Female genital mutilation tends to be like a bit worse than circumcision, just on like the physical part of it in terms of like what's getting hacked off. But I mean, and then, yeah, I think that's probably one of the big reasons. And then a second reason is because Christianity has so many ties, at least in the United States. Like if you're a Christian, it seems like you circumcise your child, which seems weird because it seems like a Jewish thing. But so I mean, like it was really, really, really popular in the U.S. among a lot of religious communities for a while. So I mean, that habit or tradition was probably staying. But I think the trends on circumcision have been slowly reversing in the U.S. So I imagine at some point that'll change.
Why is it so much popular in the U.S. compared to like other Christian countries?
I've heard things that, but I'm not 1,000% sure. I've heard that like the Dr. Kellogg guy was like a big advocate in pushing circumcision because it helps boys prevent themselves from engaging in self-abuse and masturbation. That's like the biggest thing I've heard of in favor of it, or not in favor of it, but that's one of the biggest things I've heard for why people pushed it so much early on. But I'm not 100% sure if that's like the big reason why it was so much more popular in the US than in like Europe.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bolster asked, what do you think about the EU curtailing the activities of social networks like Facebook?
Well, I know about the Australia news ban. What has the EU done to social networks?
I have actually no clue. I don't know if people in the discussion want to chime in. We can get to that a little after then.
Okay.
Okay, Seb asked, if you lived in a multi-party system, would you vote for a party that moves the Overton window? Or would you vote for the party that most aligns with your stances?
I really don't give a fuck about shit like the Overton window. I'm more of a policy person. I would probably just vote for whoever I think has the best policies.
Okay, so Ranger wanted to ask something in VC. If we can just unmute him, that would be good.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, Ranger.
Hi. So I know you're the proud owner of a Glock 17 sidearm, and that got me thinking, what's your stance on gun control, Destiny?
I don't really care that much about gun control. I think most people overhype it. I think liberals' fascination with rifles is really stupid, considering how little crime they commit, or how many homicides are like related to rifles. I feel like gun crimes are largely an extension, when we're talking about homicides, at least, of other things like the DEA policy on like drugs. So like I'm a big fan of getting rid of the war on drugs to deal with gun crimes, and then yeah, I'm just gun stuff is not something that I think we fixate on that really hardcore on the left for some reason, and I think it's a little bit misplaced.
On that tangent, actually, related to gun control, but do you think that Kyle Rittenhouse was justified at the shooting in Kenosha with his actions?
In terms of, do I think he was acting in self-defense? Yeah, I mean, like, I've watched the videos like a million fucking times, obviously, because I've had to argue about him so much. But yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. I think anybody that watches it and is being honest, I think it's pretty obvious.
Bit of a dead horse for you at this point, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but
yeah. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
yeah, thanks
Good luck.
a lot.
Do you think it was fair for the way you got in trouble for those comments that you made?
I don't know. I mean, I probably wouldn't say so, but I don't think in terms of like what's fair, what's not fair, because you'll probably drive yourself crazy if you go through life trying to think of what's fair or not fair. It is what it is.
That's actually good life advice. Okay. So Southwest asked, what is your position on the British Union of BDIs? And do you agree with their mission statement to light together? What is this question?
The British Union BDIs, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think that the goal that they aim for, I think, is really positive, but I think sometimes the way that they go about achieving their policies is a little bit misplaced. Like I feel like they're a little bit too idealistic sometimes, and I think if they got more support from other people in surrounding parties, I have no idea what this is. I'm sorry, I have no fucking idea.
Yeah, it was a little confusing. All right, so Big Beak Billy asked, what is your opinion on, I'm guessing, the game, the Destiny franchise?
I don't know. I haven't played the games. They seem okay. I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on them because I don't really play them. I'm sorry.
Did they ever get annoyed at you for having like that name and the subreddit associated with it?
Nope. They never reached out to me at all. It was probably easier to just grab Destiny the game on everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, people in chat are really mad because they did play. Okay, I played this game like one time, one day, but I don't have any strong opinions of it because I didn't play it more than that. So there you go. All right.
Okay. And Uncle Feud asked, Uncle Freud, sorry. What is the best way for your average everyday person who may not have time or ability to get in-depth knowledge on politics or philosophy or any matter to shield themselves from misinformation? Is it possible to navigate these topics solely by virtue of critical thinking or being skeptical?
Honest to God, if you just read the articles that people like on YouTube talk about, you will be more informed than like most of the people that talk about them, including like other YouTubers and shit. Like that's legitimately my advice. Like most people that like talk about news online don't actually read anything that they're talking about. Like if you just read the article, you'll like run into direct contradictions of exactly what they've said. So,
are there any channels or like websites that you think are most guilty of that?
Are there channels that I think are most guilty of it? I don't know. I mean, I think Kalinsky doesn't read most of what he talks about. I think that a lot of Twitch streamers don't read most of what they talk. I think almost everybody. Like, David Pakman seems to do a decent job for the most part. Oh, actually, okay, hold on. David Pakman does a decent job. Hutch, there's a guy called Hutch on Twitch, but I think he mainly plays games. I don't know if you'd watch him for politics, but he does a really good job at reading into stuff. I'm like super proud of him. That guy's awesome. And then there are like smaller political streamers. Like I think I'm Really Important does decent like reading too. Yeah.
Cool. So our Tribune Jax had a question about Omaha. Jax, you there? You should be able to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. You guys can't hear him too, right? Am I crazy?
No, I can hear him. Hey, what's up, man?
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. Wait, what do you mean by that? I'm so sorry. I'm just fucking with you. I can't hear him. I can't hear him at all. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I actually believed you for a second.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Dirty, no one can hear you.
Sorry, my mic was manually muted.
Okay.
My bad.
Oh, it's okay. I was just
Destiny
having a bit.
confused me.
No, I was just having a
Sorry.
bit of a existential crisis right now. It's fine. Okay, yeah, continue.
You've been told not to campaign by residents of Omaha. You usually justify it by saying your son or residents are within the city. Do you really need to have that connection to support local candidates anywhere? It seems to me kind of like redundant to use that justification due to the fact that like top-down politics will affect local politics anyway. So why not have people advocating in those communities, even if they're not connected to them, the like correct policy in their minds? So that's my question.
No, you don't need to, but it's an optics thing. People want to feel like you have some like commitment or attachment to a city, so that's why people will purity test you on it. Personally, I don't think it's 100% required, especially because what happens in neighboring cities could eventually come around and affect your city. So
That's cool.
IG, great name there, asked, would you consider yourself a moral relativist?
probably, yeah.
Do you have any like justification for it, or do you not want to get into that deep of it?
I don't know, or maybe not. I'm not sure. It depends on what he means by that. A lot of people use these terms in different ways. I don't believe like in any form of like objective moral truth or moral realism, and some people will like by default say that like, oh well, then you must be a relativist. So I don't know. I guess I would have to talk to the guy and figure out specifically how he's using that term.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so Claptrap wanted to ask, why do you have porn channels in your official Discord server?
This porn is fucking awesome.
Do you have a justification for that? Okay, don't kill me. Oh, we can move on.
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people like porn, so if they want to watch porn, they can watch porn. That's what other justifications or anything. I don't know. People like it. I don't have like a moral opposition to it or anything, so yeah, why not? Why wouldn't I?
Okay, so let's move on to this.
Well, no. What do you want to say? Say it. Get it out.
Okay. Do you have any like criticisms about like any aspects of porn?
Okay. I think that are you trying to lead me to the? Do you think that porn can be used in problematic ways that we should discourage people from utilizing it with? Is that where we're going to?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of porn that's like, you know, made in a very exploitative way, right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of media everywhere that's made in super exploitative ways, of course. People argue about crunch time for like engineers, for instance. Do I think that? So, what was the original question? Do I think that some aspects of porn can be problematic, or do I think?
Yeah. Or like, do you try to? Sure. I guess. Do you try to moderate that on your server, or is it just like? I mean, anything that's legal goes. Child
porn, yeah, anything. I mean, it's hard to regulate it because I can't like take that extra step and try to say that like I don't know how I could like we can't like fact check or verify like uploads to other porn sites and stuff, right? So I have to assume if it's coming from another site, it is illegal at least.
Do you know the changes that were made recently with Pornhub where they're starting to be like more strict?
Yeah, verified post or something in order to upload.
Yeah, what's your opinion on that?
It's probably a good policy. There's a lot of bad stuff being posted before that just was kind of slipping through the cracks that they weren't doing anything about.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Skipples had a question. Okay, this is very relevant to what you and I have talked about before. How close are you comfortable getting with your fans?
Listen, dude, fucking fans is awesome, all right?
No.
That's A+. Yep, that's some Kino Primo shit right there. Hell yeah.
All right. Tom said, what do you think of Amazon Prime? Random question.
What do I think of Amazon Prime? It's good. No, I don't want to pay for shipping, so cool, I guess. Right?
Yeah, great question, Tom.
Thanks. Good job,
That was
Tom.
top tier. Okay. Bamf has asked, do you see yourself diversifying your content to cater to a more international audience in the future?
Fuck no. I can only really talk about like what's interesting to me. I don't know. Deep dives on like other countries' issues aren't always most interesting. Sometimes stuff is, but
Plus, I'm sure like there'd be a concern of you not handling it like appropriately, right? Like, because a lot of foreign issues are very complex.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure it depends on what exactly it is you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Dirty Harry, the long question. You've mentioned before that one helpful tactic that you use when talking to bad faith actors like Rob Noor is to ask them to steel man your arguments, as it shows that these people are capable of acting in good faith. They just choose not to. My question is, in an effort to diversify one's tactics against bad faith actors, are there any other go-to strategies off the top of your head that you use in these sorts of conversations?
That's only one quote unquote tactic I can think of. Everything else is just like very careful diligence. Like you have to be very careful in keeping track of the argument. You have to be very careful in understanding what they're saying and make sure they're responding to your point. Like everything else is just like mechanical. Like you have to be like very, very good at like keeping track of the conversation. There's not like any other like quick tricks like that, I guess.
Well, do you have like any tips on how to get better with your like rhetoric and quick thinking?
Practice and review. Be introspective, I guess. Like if you have a conversation you feel like it didn't go well, then go listen to it and figure out why you think it didn't go well. Stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, listening to yourself is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, so Z was asking, do you think billionaires should exist if the current society was fair?
Should billionaires exist if the current society was fair? I guess. I don't know. I don't care about whether or not billionaires exist. I more care about whether or not we are funding the social programs that we need to make sure that everybody in society has like some bare level of like existence.
All right. And Asa asked, what do you say to people that say trusting science is akin to trusting a religion or faith? Okay, someone just deleted that question right when I was asking you. That was very inconvenient of you, whoever did that. Yeah, so I don't know, like, if you know what I was asking. I totally forgot.
Yeah, I mean, comparing like belief in science to like a belief in a religion is kind of silly, I think. But I mean, we'd have to like run down that conversation. I just think it's a really dumb comparison.
Are there any criticisms you would have, like, for the way people talk about science?
Yeah, sometimes people think that science can give them like moral answers and stuff, which is really stupid. Yeah, I would be critical of anybody that believes that.
Okay, that's fair. Do you think that there's like ever like a danger of people trusting science like too much, I guess?
A danger of people trusting science too much. Like in...
I don't know, just because like there's like a historical standard for, you know...
scientific racism and stuff?
Yeah, scientific racism, or just, I mean, lobotomies. Like there's been plenty of mistakes like in the scientific field.
Sure, I mean, but what's the alternative? Not trusting science ever? I mean, we should always be skeptical of science. I mean, I agree with that, right? I would hope nobody would disagree with that point.
Yeah, most scientists would probably say the same.
Yeah, of course.
Okay. We will move on to... Yules had a question. Let's get him unmuted. Also, guys, if you're asking your questions, please don't change your name in the middle. It's very annoying to find you don't unmute.
Hi.
Hey, Yules.
Hi. Yeah, I was gonna ask recent conversation with Vosh. It made me think of, do you reckon having money as a whole, or especially being rich, means you have a moral obligation to use that money to better your society, or, you know, to further your own principles? Or is it just, like, it's good if you do it, but you don't have to morally?
I mean, I would say that you have, like, a higher responsibility too, yeah. I would, yeah.
Yules, did you have any follow-up? You're good?
Well, I have some other questions, but I can ask those later.
Okay, cool.
I just wanted to know what his answer was.
Redis had a question about logic.
Yeah, hey Destiny. I was wondering if you think that like an informal logic class should be mandatory in college.
Yeah, like some type of like philosophy, like logic class, right?
Yeah. I don't know how useful I would think like getting into like upper level, like near like mathematical logic would be, but just like arguments, statements, premises, deductive arguments, inductive, all that informal stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that'd be really good. I think like a propositional logic class or whatever. Yeah, I think everybody should have to take one of these. I think it'd be really positive.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Oprah asked, do you believe that there are only two genders? And why or why not?
I I mean, like, I think that gender exists in a binary. You probably have a bunch of in-betweens from, like, masculine to feminine. So if that means two, then sure. If not, then no, I guess is what I would say.
Nice Memer asked, since what someone says on a large social media company in one country can be read by people across the whole world, wouldn't it make more sense to regulate big tech through international law?
It could, sure. So kind of like how the GDPR kind of applies internationally.
Yeah. Do you think like American companies have too much power on the internet?
Do American companies have too much power on the internet? Too much implies that there's like a rightful amount of power. They should have like too much relative to other countries. I mean, because America has a lot of position on the internet compared to other countries, so they should probably have more. I don't know. Wait, can you ask a little bit more specifically?
Okay. Do you see any like any potential issues with the amount of influence that the United States like has, like on the internet, or like dominating like internet culture?
I mean, yeah, it could have a ton of issues. Fuck. I don't know. I just don't know how to answer. It's like really, really broad. I mean, like, I mean, yeah, the U.S. kind of a disproportionate amount of influence on the internet, but the U.S. also like contributes a disproportionate amount of stuff to the internet. So I mean, like they, yeah, yes. I'll answer that question with a yes.
Very in-depth answer. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so the Great Human said, "Are you in favor of work cooperatives? If not, then why are you against them?"
Am I in favor of work cooperatives? I mean, like if they work well, then people can do them. I think that there are some problems with co-ops, like capitalization, like how do you get money to start them? Seems to be like a really hard problem to answer that nobody has good answers to. So yeah, I mean, if they work, then that's cool where they work. They just seem to be like really hard to get into, I guess.
Cool. Tomfoolery asked, do you find labels like liberal and conservative useful? And how would you define left/right and liberal/conservative?
I don't find them useful right now because the parties, at least in the United States and even worldwide, we've got a big divergence of opinion between people on the left and right. So I'm not even going to try to define them because whatever I do, somebody will get mad at something. So I mean, like, I think that right now the labels are a little bit useless because you spend more time arguing about what you're not than what you are when somebody gives you a particular label.
Do you think people should just focus on the actual issues at hand instead of what category they fit into?
Yeah, but then people would have to actually learn about the actual issues. So, but yeah, I think so. Yeah.
John Lemon, great name, asked, what's the greatest lesson you've learned from being a public figure and how has it changed your outlook?
What's the greatest? Oh, Jesus. Man, how stupid a lot of people are. And it's changed my outlook by making me a big doomer on society. That's what it's done.
You don't think you would have had that without being a public figure?
I don't know. I gradually lost more and more respect for people as I got older. When I left high school and started working jobs, I got less respect for people. So maybe that trend would have continued regardless. Who knows?
Well, I think Philip DeFranco recently said that if he was just getting into being a public figure now, he would have started off like not showing his face. Like he would have been a VTuber.
Oh no, I don't give a fuck about any of that. I'm public as fuck about everything. I'm pretty similar between real life and what I do online, so I don't care about any of that kind of stuff.
So you don't have like anxiety about like security or I don't know, like the consequences of everyone knowing your face and stuff?
Nah, I don't give a fuck.
Wow. Okay. You have a lot of courage.
Thanks.
Okay. What Spartacus asked, what are your honest thoughts on Hassan Piker?
I think he does entertaining video game streams.
Any ideas about his politics, anything like that?
I view him as like a political person. I think when you start doing that, I think it's a lot harder to view him in a favorable light.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay. And Ozfox had a question. So Ozfox, you can ask that in VC.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep, so just quickly, I'm just wondering if generally your interactions with like socialism on left slash, call me boy or other non-brain dead like socialists has essentially changed your mind or moved you towards like a more market-based form of socialism or a like socialist state in the sense of like how Australia puts it, because currently like I think you agree with most of Labor's positions and they consider themselves socialist and their policy socialist. So I'm just wondering if you're moving towards that.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, if there are left-leaning people that are taking on the old Republican definition of socialism, as socialism is when the government does stuff, then I guess, yeah, I'm pretty in favor of that kind of stuff, sure.
Yeah, and considering you constantly have really, really bad takes on the understanding of Australian politics and stuff, earlier in the AMA you said you understand the Australian ban. I'm just wondering specifically what you meant by that with the media thing.
So my understanding is that Australia made it so that if Facebook wanted to start adding media to their feeds, if they wanted to start adding like other news organizations, headlines and stuff to some of their media feeds, that Facebook was going to have to negotiate positions with those different media companies in order to actually compensate them for that. Originally, Facebook said that they were going to pull out completely, but apparently they reached a deal with a ton of different media organizations to like ensure that they continue to, I guess, serve media to people that are in Australia.
Okay, good boy.
Yep, nice try though, motherfucker. Get him out of here.
Okay. Ozfox, you're demodded and you're banned. Goodbye. Okay. Benny had a question about ethical egoism. So let's get you unmuted.
How do you get from like your moral system, which seems to be something along the lines of ethical and descriptive egoism, of course, like social contract theory with humans, to how you're currently acting, like politically, like maybe to give some extra context, I saw your.
Hold on, wait, I didn't understand anything. Like, wait, can you say that a little bit slower, or not say that a little better?
Okay, yeah, sure. I'm super nervous, so.
No, you're good.
So the core of my question is, how do you get from like your moral system to, which seems to be something along the lines of ethical egoism or like descriptive egoism, of course, with like the social contract theory with human animals, to how you're currently acting like politically. So maybe to give some extra context, I saw your videos with like these purity testers from online that really try to nail you down on like, hey, you're only doing this for a personal like gain, or have some like personal investment, or you're doing this for content or that kind of stuff, right? And yeah, it seemed like that's and they weren't really able to nail you down. You just like the money that you invested and like that you actually care about the people and that kind of stuff. And yeah, to me that seemed really at odds. And from what I've seen from your like moral breakdown, which I'm still waiting for a part 2, by the way, of that video. That was a really good video, but yeah, that seemed to be at odds with your moral system breakdown. Does my question make sense? Or
kind of, I guess. So like, I mean, like the really fundamental. I guess the example that I always give is that like, if you walk into a room and there's like 5 candy bars on a table and you've got 4 friends with you, I mean, if you walk into a room and you eat all the candy bars, everybody's gonna fucking hate you. So it doesn't seem like you accomplish very much there by being like ultra selfish. And then I just kind of like expand that take to like the rest of society, to where like if you want like a truly good society that serves you the best possible way, you probably want most people to be doing pretty well inside of it, because if everybody is like getting fucked and everybody's poor and everybody's committing crimes, everybody's like lives are horrible, you're probably not gonna have a very good experience in that society. So
okay, may I respond or
yeah, it's not it's not my server.
Okay.
Go for it.
So like I want to bring you back to like some arguments that you made against veganism, which would really apply like, hey, this like you can do something, but it will be like a very small impact on like the grand scheme of like environmental change. Maybe this is even like a bigger change. Wouldn't you be able to say like, especially what you're currently doing, suffers the same consequence? Do you know the argument that I'm referring to?
Wait,
the environmental argument.
Or what? That like we should push for veganism for environmental reasons?
Yeah, like your argument often against this is something along the lines of like yeah, well, like one person doesn't have like a huge impact on the society, right?
Or yeah, like I wouldn't like call on one person to make like some huge sacrifice. Or if somebody thought it was a huge sacrifice, I wouldn't call on one person to make that unless they were like legally obligated to, yeah. Or if it wasn't going to accomplish like directly like some like big direct end.
Is this not really what you're doing currently with like your political action? You're
What do you mean?
You're asking people for like huge investments for maybe like political change, like that for like some small political change, like the five candy bars example.
Well, I think that for like, so for instance, for like what I did in Omaha, I think that would have been a pretty big political change for my city. Like having a progressive mayor in, I think would be a pretty big thing, no?
Oh yeah, of course. Like it would be a pretty big environmental change if everyone went vegan or were able to like do that, right? But
if everybody went vegan, yeah.
Yeah, but like the analogy that I'm trying to compare is, on the one hand, you're saying you shouldn't be like I'm not a vegan, but I was interested in this. Is like you seem to be on one hand saying like, hey, veganism, I mean, if you like personally do like a small bit for this, then I don't think you're morally required to. But now you said like, oh yeah, well, if you have a lot of money, then you're like morally responsible for like investing this and like in change or something like that.
So are you saying that I should be pushing like all of my fans to be vegan or whatever?
Oh no! I'm saying it doesn't. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to be more articulate. I'm gonna talk a little bit slower. So
it's okay, Benny. I think we
like,
might have to move to another question unless you can say it super quickly.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, like the core of my question: how do you get from ethical egoism to like political change?
Yeah, well, I guess it's. I feel like I answered that in the beginning. Did I? Or like I feel like for you want to push to make the world a better place, probably. So I mean, like you should be pushing to make the world a better place. But I don't think that necessarily commits you. Like you should be advocating for good political change, but I don't think that means you have to go like volunteer all of your free time for like political campaigns or something, right?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I love you.
Thanks for the question. Ariane had a question with a very innocent name, hopefully. So I think you're unmuted, Ariane.
Yeah, don't worry, it's innocent. That's kind of annoying. I'm coming off the back of that, dude. But
I was kidding. Don't worry.
No, trigger warning to your chat, Destiny. This question includes veganism. So basically, I'm thinking when you respond to like questions about veganism, and you say you only do it when it's enforced by the state, and you compare this to mandatory voting, how do you think these laws enforcing veganism will come about if large swaths of the population, including you, don't go vegan first? Like how like vegan policy is going to be imposed if like less than 5% of the population are vegan?
I don't know. I mean, I eat a vegan meal every single day, which is more than most people can say. But I mean, I don't know. You slowly advocate for the political change, and hopefully it happens over time. I mean, maybe it never will, but I'm not going to take the risk of going vegan for my entire life and it not becoming law. Like, fuck that. Like,
can I respond to that?
Go for it.
Just, I'm confused at like, how do you think any sort of moral progress is ever going to come about if people aren't willing to make a sacrifice for themselves?
I don't know. I guess it depends on the type of progress we're talking about. But I mean, I already make like I make half a sacrifice. I eat a vegan meal every day. All right, that's my contribution.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Was there any kind of conversation or debate you had online that convinced you to be vegan?
I'm not vegan.
Well, to eat vegan, I guess, for most of your meals.
No, I mean, it's convenient. Just drink a Soylent in the morning. Yeah, I got my Soylent bottles. I drink one in the morning. It's easy meal, easy breakfast.
Soylent's actually delicious, so I agree with that one.
Nice.
Asa was asking, what do you say to people that say appealing to scientists in regards to scientific matters is an appeal to authority?
An appeal to authority isn't a bad thing. There's something called an appeal to a fallacious appeal to authority is a bad thing. So, for instance, if you're appealing to an authority that is an authority in another area, that can be considered a bad thing. Or if you're appealing to an authority, but not actually addressing the individual criticism, like saying they're right just because of who they are, then that's a bad thing as well. But just like saying that like this person is an authority figure, so we should listen to them, that's not in and of itself a fallacy.
Cool. Beholder, you have a question about your favorite topic, utilitarianism, so feel free to ask.
All right. Hey, Destiny. I'm actually, to be honest, I'm a little bit confused because somebody earlier said that you were like an egoist / social contract theorist, like a Hobbesian or something. But like what I've read online, I apologize because I don't watch your stream, so I might be wrong, but it seems like you're a rule utilitarian?
Sure. Yes.
Oh, great. My question then is basically, a common utilitarian argument comes from the economic principle of, diminishing marginal utility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that a lot, say most goods, exhibit this, and I think it provides a strong instrumental reason for utilitarians to care about the quality in distributing goods. So I guess to illustrate, right? Imagine I had 2 people, right? And, I have 50 cookies. If I give one person 1 cookie and another person 49 cookies, and let's say that the utility that they gain from cookies, right, is going to be like the square root of the number of cookies, because that means that utility increases with the number of cookies you get, but it also diminishes, right, marginally, right? So, person A, right, has 1 cookie, they have 1 util, and person B has 49 cookies, they have 7 utils, right? Now, in another scenario, I have these 2 people, but I give them both 25 cookies. So the amount of cookies are conserved, right? We have 50 cookies in both scenarios. But in scenario 2, both people have 5 utils, which adds up to 10 utils versus the 8 utils in the previous scenario. Now, the reason why I illustrate this is because I think it leads to a conclusion, right? That is, utilitarians should advocate for wealth equality. And I'm wondering if you agree with that.
Yeah, I believe in marginal utility, of course, and I think distribution should probably take that into account. That's why I'm in favor of like a progressive tax system, for instance.
All right, then I guess my follow-up is, because I think you're a liberal, right? So why wouldn't you just advocate for like a way for, I guess, a collective to just democratically redistribute, right? Without all the bureaucratic, I guess, institutions that prevent this from happening. Because surely, right?
What does democratically redistribute mean? What does that mean?
Simply like, here, I'll give another example, right? So like at this very moment,
wait. Just tell me what you mean by that. I don't need another example. Just what do you mean by that exactly?
Okay, I'll try to say it, right? So basically, people could just literally like vote, right, to redistribute wealth however they see fit, right? This might be facilitated by technology or something, right? This might be institutional, but the idea is people's preferences, right, are going to be represented the most. It's like at the moment, right?
Are you talking about like just like expropriating everybody's stuff? Like how do you do that? What does that look like in practice?
Well, the idea is like, I would appeal to like something like communalism, right? So like, you might have people who elect representatives, right? Who, are tasked with representing their preferences the best, right?
Yeah, well, I'm in terms of what we have right now, like what is the next step? Like, or I'm just trying to figure out like what this looks like in practice, like.
Well, at the moment, I don't think this is possible, right? I'm just saying, like in theory, right? Do you think socialism would be a better solution, right, for wealth equality, than the liberal system we have now?
I mean, if it worked, sure. I mean, in theory, it sounds great. In practice, it doesn't seem to be very possible to do that. I don't know how anything in society works at that point. And if everything kind of falls apart and your overall productivity and everything completely decline, then it seems like whatever small gains you might make by distributing property or whatever is not going to matter at the end of the day.
So,
Beholder,
Well-
I'm gonna have to cut you off now. We'll have to move on. I'm sorry. Thanks for your question, though. Okay, Wizard. You had a question also about philosophy, Dusty's favorite subject.
Yep.
About determinism. Wizard, you're unmuted.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hey, Destiny. Thanks for doing the AMA. I had a question about your view on hardline determinism.
Okay.
What do you think the moral implications of hardline determinism are?
We should probably understand that people are products of their environments and then work to shape environments in ways that make better people, rather than just pretending that everybody has like some ultimate control over their life, like irrespective of where they come from.
Gotcha. How do you reconcile that view with the illusion of choice that we experience?
I think within the context of day-to-day life, we just don't worry about it. You just don't think about it. It doesn't really make much sense for us to think about it, I don't think.
All right. Yeah, that's it. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Java Bolt was asking, do you think it should be illegal to perform circumcision on minors?
I think so, yes.
Have you always thought so, or was this something that you got kind of pilled on, like, later on?
I probably developed it somewhere in my 20s, I guess. I don't know when exactly, but it seems pretty obvious.
Okay. Mars Bars had a question about cognitivism, so let's unmute him.
Yeah, so Destiny, are you a non-cognitivist, error theorist? Why or why not?
I don't know, man. Every time I give it a definition, one of these people will email me and say, well, actually, you're this or this. I don't think I know enough about philosophy to say. I mean, I would probably say that I'm a non-cognitivist because I feel like moral statements don't like translate to any direct truth value. It seems like you're more just expressing an emotion or a psychological state. Like, oh, like murder bad means I don't like murder, or like murder boo or whatever. But so, yeah, so that would, whatever position that is.
Yeah, non-cog, super based.
Thanks.
Yeah, so there's a rumor going around that you and Eris have dated in the past, Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Does you coming on CC confirm that you and Eris are getting back together?
Wait, is this a meme or?
No, I'm dead serious.
Wait, you sound like you're laughing.
No, that was me. I'm sorry.
What?
Okay, no, I am memeing, but there is actually a rumor going around that you and Eris have dated. So
Okay, I can't tell because my ex-girlfriend of like 6 or 7 years, and she's currently a close friend of mine. Her name is Eris. So if you've heard a rumor, like I could see people being confused by that, but it's not this one, or at least I don't think it is. If it is, that would be very strange.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that's where the confusion lies.
Gotcha.
Okay. So let's move on to another question. Rowdy, Psycho Trout had a question. Let's unmute you.
So basically my question was, have you ever read any of the Francophone philosophers? Like, I recently read Frantz Fanon's White Skin, Black Mass, or White Mass, Black Skin, and it was talking about, like Northern Africans when they tried to migrate to places like France. And there's like this social standard that the French had, like you're not a true Frenchman because you can't like pronounce like French the right way. And it kind of translated to how like African Americans are treated somewhat in the South, where they're told not to use like African American vernacular English in classrooms and stuff like that. But have you ever touched on like any stuff like that, or Jean-Paul Sartre, where the term bad faith comes from?
Nope.
Okay, and then the other question real quick was, do you have any interest in DMT? Because you're kind of dabbling in psychonautics a little bit. I see that you somewhat or seem to enjoy altered states of consciousness and thinking, and like, piecing things together or boiling them down to like the rudimentary pieces. I watch it a lot, so.
Yeah, I mean, at some point I hope to try it. I just haven't had the chance to yet.
Okay, I'm in your Discord.
Okay.
Later.
All right.
Ford had a question about canvassing. I unmuted you, Ford.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I was in Georgia with your group a couple weekends during the Senate race. So based on your recent experiences in this arena, do you have any like new or updated ideas on the most effective ways somebody like with a platform like yourself can translate that political power into the real world without, let's say, unfortunate outcomes?
I mean, I guess it depends on like who you're going to be advocating for, and then like what your history and everything is. But I still think canvassing is probably one of the most direct action things that you can do. Like, I think any type of political action you can do that involves getting people to actually show up and do things is going to be incredibly effective, because that's just so difficult to do in the real world. And I think streamers are uniquely positioned to activate audiences like that, because the parasocial relationship is so much stronger than in other forms of media. Like, you spend so much more time watching a streamer than you would like a YouTuber or a traditional media figure. So. Yeah, I think anything that like is that type of direct action. Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you, man. Keep it up. I'm excited to see what you do in the future.
Cool, thanks. Have fun. Be careful.
Well, that brings up another question, right? Like, because recently there was like a whole, I guess, issue associated with some guy, like I think that you were canvassing with, getting in trouble for being associated with you. Streamers by nature, because you're streaming all the time, you're just more likely to say things that are, you know, either you regret or just things that are like controversial or cancelable. So like, yeah, what are your thoughts like on that issue?
I mean, it's going to come down to depending on who you support and depending on like the issue that you're running for. I mean, like I'm sure there are like ways to like mitigate like things you've said online. So for instance, like if you're canvassing for like larger figures, you're likely to be kind of a little bit more likely to be lost in the noise, so people won't focus on you as much. If you have a less direct relationship with those figures, then people are less likely to criticize the figures themselves. Or if you're canvassing for like ballot initiatives or something, it's kind of hard to associate a person with a ballot initiative and say, well, this initiative is bad because this person's canvassing for it. So I mean, like, there are ways to work around it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point about the ballots. Ali had a question about neo-pronouns in BC. I think you wanted to ask.
Hey, so I was wondering what your views on neo-pronouns were.
Cringe.
And if someone asked you to use their neo-pronouns, like, would you?
I'd probably just use they, them.
Okay.
I don't understand how, or maybe there's some theory that I need to read or whatever, but I don't, like, a neo-pronoun just sounds like a proper noun, like, or I mean, grammatically it's used a little bit differently, but the idea of having unique pronouns when pronouns exist almost explicitly to not be unique is just very strange. It like defies a lot of our kind of grammar rules. You have the right to have a name for yourself. You have a right to identify with whatever gender you wish. But the right to like start inserting like other types of pronouns just gets like very weird. Like, I don't know, I think it breaks down language conventions a little bit too much. Maybe in the future I'd be open to changing my opinion on that, but right now it seems to be a little bit not a very based meme.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Virtual Reality had a question about COVID vaccines. I don't see him there actually. Unless I'm like insane. Yeah, I can't see him here. I'll just ask it. Oh, and it's been deleted.
Bam.
Okay, mods, if you can only delete the questions once I ask them. All right, we will move on to Brandon. Why does Destiny claim to be a capitalist but advocates for government control on heavy intervention into certain industries?
Because there's absolutely nothing contradictory about either of those positions. I don't know why anybody would think so.
I mean, why do you think it's non-contradictory?
Because it's not. Because anybody, even Milton Friedman, would recognize that capitalism needs restrictions in certain parts. So there are certain things that won't be accounted for by market forces, and you have to use the government to account for those things.
Okay. So Sparkler had a question. Since defund the police doesn't poll super well, do you know of any better alternative optically and or functionally?
I really liked the 8 can't wait policy list, but I guess that wasn't virtue signaling enough for a lot of hard lefties, so they didn't really care much about it. But I think I thought that was like a really cool initiative. I supported that.
Cool. Tadagoosh asked, what are your thoughts in regards to the political success of Nick Fuentes and the America First movement?
Hopefully lefties take notice and start organizing more in real life rather than committing themselves to Twitter activism.
CGI, you had a question, so I'm going to unmute you.
So I have one question, but it's a follow-up into that question both can answer. So how do you feel about a lot of people from other countries that may have some type of monoculture use them saying they want to quote unquote preserve their culture and use as justification to actually restrict immigration from other cultures that they may not deem compatible with their own culture. This example of places like Poland, for example. And going into that, how do you feel this type of thought process will be applicable to the United States, where we don't necessarily have a monoculture or some unified culture?
So I think it's dumb, but I don't care about what other countries do with their policies. Like, that's on them. If Poland wants to preserve its whatever culture, then that's, I mean, knock yourselves out. I don't care. For the United States, I mean, I think it's a really negative way into the future. I think it's a very like backwards looking way to run a country. So, I mean, I'd be opposed to that for the United States.
Okay, and I just had a quick follow-up. It actually went to what Eris was saying. It followed in my mind. We do understand that things can be taken out of context, and especially when you're a streamer, especially your value and height on a Twitch sphere and other media. So going into the thing that happened where your words were taken out of context from old clips and such, me personally being a supporter of yours and being African American, I wanted to know what was the context of that quote that they posted. And two, this goes into another thing that you had discussion with some people on your stream a few days ago. You talked about how you believe that people that go to Black Lives Matter protests we've seen are mostly not African American for the most part. How do you feel that those people that aren't African American necessarily can actually be allies or support certain efforts to for Black people in America?
The one, if it's the one clip I think you're referring to, wasn't it just me explaining why like certain words are harmful in certain contexts? I think it was.
I think I don't understand. I just saw a clip when that whole entire thing happened. I guess of you just saying the N-word. I guess, but I didn't know the context. I just wanted
Yeah,
to
I'm
know
pretty
what
sure that was the context. Is like when you say certain words in certain contexts, whatever, they're bad or whatever, and I say the words that we're talking about. So that, I mean, that was that. The second question, I think that it's fine if white people want to protest along with like Black Lives Matter and stuff. I think it's fine. I think they probably should. I just think it's a little bit inappropriate to protest with those groups and then go and start like vandalizing and rioting and stuff, because it feels like you're ultimately going to be bringing more harm on those communities by doing something like that.
Okay, well, thanks for the answers. Keep doing everything you're doing, and I hope to see you later on the stream.
Yeah, thanks. I'll be careful.
Nev had a question about debating. You're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I recall you once saying that debating isn't to change the mind of the person that you're talking to, rather the audience watching. What do you recommend to people that want to change the views of the other person, not necessarily the audience? And do you think people can necessarily like change their mind on a belief they have?
They can, but you have to be like friendly with them, and it has to take place over like a long period of time. That's going to be really, really, really hard to do, and it has to be like a very personal relationship to do that, I think. Like it's outside of the bounds of like conversational stuff. Like at that point, it's more like relationship, like interpersonal stuff, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Maymay's had a question about leftist YouTubers.
Did I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I did. It wasn't pinned. That's why I was a bit confused. What was it? Do you think leftist YouTubers in the future could have an effect on the American political landscape?
Yeah, probably. There's a lot of Americans that are fans of a lot of leftist YouTubers, right? So like
Yeah,
Sean and Jen and H-Bomber Guy and people like those probably influence some Americans that watch their stuff, I would imagine.
Yeah, and especially as like the Zoomers become older, I guess people they'll more likely be able to vote. So yeah.
Do you have any favorites, like among the leftist YouTubers that have come along?
Destiny might not like. Oh wait, me or Destiny?
Oh, I was asking Destiny, but you can answer too.
Oh no, it's fun.
I don't know. Vosh is probably one of the better ones. Past that, I don't know. It gets really dark down there in lefty YouTuber land. I like Natalie a lot, but I don't even know if people consider her a lefty now, since she's kind of like doesn't seem to be like a big socialist. So.
Yeah, she's been quote unquote canceled a few times. Do you think that she's being treated like unfairly by the left in general?
I just don't really think about terms of like fair and unfair. It's just not something I
Alright,
think about.
yeah,
Yeah, so
that's
if
true.
you want to ask me that, you have to ask me like with respect to like a certain value system. Like, so are bread tubers treating her in a way that they should that's consistent with their beliefs? I mean, yeah, they seem to be taking like a hardcore socialist bend. So in that case, like, yeah, they should be canceling her and shit. Do I think that they should be taking that, or do I think that's effective? No and no. But I mean, like, yeah, it's hard. I never evaluate things like, is this fair or not, unless we're literally talking like criminal justice or something. Yeah.
Well, I guess the criticisms I've heard about her is that she's transmedicalist or said things that were like
I don't think
transphobic
she's
towards
any of those
like
things, no.
non-binary people. But I mean, I've heard the same criticisms labeled at like a lot of people. Like I've heard a few people say that about you as well. But yeah, like why do people like as well? Like there's certain elements of the trans community that think you're transphobic.
The online trans community is very online and very white and very fucking insane. I don't know why that has become like the new like militant like battleground community. The online trans community and the sex worker community it feels like it's starting to get there too. Although maybe that won't get as extreme. But yeah, I don't know what the deal is or why it is that way. But
Yeah. Speaking of gender, this guy said, "What's your opinions on the abolition of gender?"
What's my opinions on the abolition of gender? I mean, I don't know. It sounds like it'd be based, but I don't know if society could handle it. I don't know if ultimately it would be beneficial for society. It's really hard to think. What do you think about the abolition of capitalism? Like, it'd be cool, I guess, if we could do it and we had something that worked in its place. But I don't know if that's possible.
All right. Prosper asked, what's your advice to people who want to make it on Twitch, as in like make you a living off of it?
You need to have a consistent schedule. You need to offer something that nobody else offers. Like there needs to be some reason that people are going to watch you over anybody else. And then you also need to hit like your bare minimum threshold of like, what do you need in order to be considered like a competent streamer? So like your audio and your video stuff has to be like at a bare minimum threshold of what it needs to be decent.
Okay. Is there any no-nos that you should never do, or?
I mean, like obviously, like don't break any huge rules. Don't stream at wildly inconsistent times. Don't vary your content over and over again. I mean, like there's some basic things, right?
Cool. Alpha Chad had a question. You're unmuted, Alpha.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, I was going to ask, what do you think is the best way to battle disinformation?
I have no idea. If I knew the answer to that, I'd be doing it more. I just like to read articles and do research stuff, but it's really hard because it's very boring and it's not very entertaining. And then I guess arguing or debating people. But it seems like some of the biggest spreaders of misinformation have learned that they are. So they like refuse to have conversations with other people. So they just like stick in their kind of echo chamber and they spread their misinformation. So yeah, I don't know. It's a really, really rough one.
Fair enough. Thank you.
It seems that your stance on nature versus nurture is that essentially that there's a feedback between nature and nurture where one influences the other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if that holds up. It seems like it sidesteps the whole discussion of nature versus nurture, and that essentially you're saying at the end of the day, nature is just influenced by nurture. Are there any intrinsic things to being human that you believe kind of fall outside of that feedback loop, if that makes sense? Let's say people are necessarily born, like let's say to a mother. Does that mean that is part of being human and you can't really nature or nurture your way out of that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like, I mean, the nature-nurture distinction is real, just not as real as people like to pretend it is all I try to like stress to people. I mean, like there are some things that are like highly, highly, highly influenced by our genetics, but I think that like viewing this as like an ultra hard dichotomy of like this is nature and this is nurture, I think kind of misses broadly like what's actually going on, I guess is basically what I would say.
But you will concede that there are, in fact, strictly, sorry, I'm driving right now. There are strictly things that are only fall in the nurture. Like let's say born into like a community, right? Like being human, you have to you can't really get around that, you know.
Well, you
like
can't get around what?
You can't get around the okay. So the problem is you say genes are influenced by your environment and solely by your environment.
Well, genes have to express themselves in environment, yeah.
Right. What I'm saying is there has to be something that falls outside of that, or else the whole nature versus nurture isn't really a nature versus nurture. It's just a nature and nurture.
Well, yeah, that's what I would say. I would say it's a nature and nurture. Yeah.
Okay, so there is, you can see a distinction between nature and nurture, is what I'm saying.
I mean, like, there is a distinction, yeah, I just don't think the distinction is as strict as a lot of people like to make it out to be. I think that's what I was saying, yeah.
Okay. All right, that seems fair.
Okay.
Okay. There was a question I highlighted, but I totally lost it right now. Okay, we'll move on to another question. Okay, Virtualizing Reality had a question about vaccines, though I can't find him in the list, so I'll ask it for it. Do you think that COVID vaccines could potentially be harmful in like 10 years?
I mean, everything can potentially be harmful, right?
So would you recommend people get vaccinated?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna get vaccinated, hell yeah.
Cool. You had a question about minimum wage?
Oh, hi Destiny, hi Ish, hi chat. So I guess my question was kind of surrounding the discourse around the minimum wage hike. I feel like a lot of it has been like it has to be all or nothing. Progressives want to raise it from $7.25 to $15, but centrist Democrats and the GOP seem to be kind of obstructing that. What are your thoughts around that?
The political will is not there for 15 an hour. The seats aren't there for it. It should probably be like $11 or $12 an hour would be a more realistic push. I don't know why people are pushing for 15. It's not going to happen with the current composition of our government.
Yeah, but I feel like that hasn't been a thing that has been put out there. Like, I think there hasn't been much discourse around raising it to like 11 or putting extra taxes on like Amazon if they don't raise it to 15.
Well, I think, didn't Amazon already raise it to 15? And then I think Manchin supports 11 an hour, I think.
Yeah,
but we don't talk about it much because people are just obsessed with 15 an hour. They don't want to talk about anything else. Publicly, it's just no one cares.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, Timber had a question about other content creators and principles.
So I've heard you in the past say things like complain at least about people or content creators not following or being consistent with their principles. Okay. And I think to me that seems to presuppose two things. One, that people generally have principles, or these people have principles. And two, that, you know, that you sort of, it's better to sort of use principle to decide, you know, to decide what's right and wrong than to not use principles. And so my question is like, why think that the judging of good and bad is really any different than judging things than the way we judge things in different domains like comedy, right? So when we sort of look at jokes, we don't appeal to sort of principles to say why a joke is funny. And in parallel, like, why should we appeal to principles to say whether this action is good or bad, right? It seems like we can sort of judge it based on the particulars of the case, just like we do in all these other domains. So I was just wondering, like, why you think people should use principles when I don't really see why morality is really fundamentally different than, let's say, other things like comedy.
I think principles are important because they give us a guide to see how a person will act in the future. It says something about the predictability of a person. That's the thing that I'm most concerned with. So if you've got a certain principle that you're committed to, and then that principle commits you to an action that we would say is good for society, and you follow that principle consistently, or at least you try to, then we say that this person will generally like act in a good way. And I think that that's important to be able to make those statements.
Well, it seems like you're just saying that you would prefer it if people acted with principles because, I don't know, for something that benefits you. That just seems to be what you're saying.
Well, you would want everybody to act in a way that makes them slightly predictable, right? Otherwise, things would be chaos, no?
Well, I mean, it seems like one could make a very plausible case that the way we actually judge right and wrong currently is not by appealing to principles, right? In fact, if we look at like various ethical dilemmas, I think a good case could be made that we sort of immediately know whether it's right or wrong, right?
What's like an example of that? I'm curious.
So, for example, let's take like a trolley problem. I think a lot of people, or let's take like one of those utilitarian cases. Like, would you sell, harvest these organs to sell to various people? I think you could say, there's immediately, we might say, okay, there's something sort of wrong here, but it's only when you, for them to like forcibly take your organs, but it's only gets tricky when somebody comes in and says, hey, no, but like, look, what's the principle you're using, right? So is it going to be maximizing like well-being, right? Or is it going to be something like that? I don't think we really appeal to those when we actually judge whether something's.
I agree that we don't appeal to them, but we probably should. It would probably do us really well to try to understand those underlying principles, and then it helps us make better decisions in the future. No.
Well, you're just saying that you think that. I mean, why? First of all, I guess it's not really clear to me why that's the case.
Why? What's
you just
the
said
case?
That it's better to use principles.
Well, because I want people to make consistent decisions in the future. Otherwise, it's just chaos.
Yeah, but why think that? But first of all, why think that? Given that you think it's chaos now, given if most people don't actually appeal to principles. Well, I mean, it certainly doesn't seem like the world is just like chaotic.
I mean,
like
in some ways, I would say the world is very chaotic. I live in Los Angeles. It's a very wealthy area, and I've got a lot of money, and a lot of people here have a lot of money. But if I drive down almost any intersection or any interstate underpass, there's like tents full of homeless people. I mean, I think that's pretty chaotic. I think there's a lot of things in our society that are like pretty like what the fuck when you look at them, and it seems like there's a lot of issues that we have. Like, why don't we have healthcare in the United States? Or I think that there's a lot of chaos in society today. I mean, like, it's relatively peaceful, I would say, compared to most points in human history, for sure. I would agree with that. But to say that, like, oh, well, we've achieved, like, some level of non-chaos, I don't know if I would agree with that.
I mean, I don't know. It seems weird to think that, like, one, our society is, like, in sort of chaos, and two, it's due to the fact that people, let's say, don't actually explicitly or at least use like principles, right, to determine what's right. So, yeah, I mean, I can understand maybe you have this like pragmatic concern, but that's all it seems to me is just some sort of pragmatic concern, which hasn't really been borne out. So.
Okay. I mean, sorry,
go. You can have the last word, but after that, we'll move on to another question.
Yeah, I guess I would hope that people that develop like a consistent foundation of principles and then act consistently from them are more predictable people and get us to better answers for moral problems or moral dilemmas than people that just are intuitively trying to figure it out from problem to problem to problem. It feels like we run into a lot of weird areas where we do that.
Okay.
Hey, Destiny, my question for you is that if the U.S. elected the president and vice president from opposing parties, where the candidate that loses takes the vice president seat of the candidate that got the majority, do you think that our government would operate better and potentially lessen the political divide that we currently have?
I don't know. I don't know if the result of our political divide right now is a result of our government structure or just the people. I don't think that the structure can change much to help that political divide, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Latex Frog asked, Destiny, plenty of left-wing Twitch voices will openly denigrate cancel culture, yet consistently dismiss arguments for being unpalatable rather than untrue. How do you think we can get more parciatistic, I don't even know how to pronounce that, voices through the wall of cancel culture?
I don't know. This is a really huge problem in society that everybody is looking to solve right now. If I had a good answer for that, I would be doing it. I mean, like, all you can do is kind of push the culture. So don't participate in cancel culture. Shame your friends if they do it, like stuff like that.
Do you think that there is like anyone who does deserve to get canceled or any actions?
I think that quote unquote getting canceled, if you've done something that you haven't like atoned for, or that have like severely fucked with other people that you haven't like atoned for, or if you're still doing it, I think that those are two things that are a really big deal. Like, So if somebody is committing bad actions now and they're doing it like continually, and then going forward into the future they're doing it, then that's something that like we should be looking at. And then if you've done like really fucky shit in the past that like never came to light and nobody knew about it, and you probably shouldn't be involved in a certain industry because of it, then that's also something that we should be dealing with.
Star Clyde had a question about musical topics. And you're unmuted.
Hi. Appreciate your work, Destiny. Thanks for taking my question.
Cool.
Yeah. So sorry to derail the philosophy and politics, but you sometimes dip into musical topics on stream, having studied music in college, and you organize a fantastic composition challenge regularly. I was wondering if you would be interested in doing more of a music theory deep dive, and if you were, do you think your viewers would be receptive to that kind of thing?
I think it would be very, very, very boring. There's a lot of groundwork I think that you have to cover before you can get into anything related to theory. So I don't think most people would enjoy it, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I love you.
There's actually been, and it's interesting that you brought up music theory, because there's been like a new topic that's been talked about from music theorists that that music theory is mostly like this kind of white colonial technique. And so a lot of, I guess, more progressive university like music departments are trying to incorporate other cultures, like styles of music notation and stuff in it. Do you agree with that criticism, or do you think that's taking things too far?
Our understanding of music theory is very, very, very Eurocentric. Anybody that's studied that has to acknowledge that, or they flunked composition or whatever. Like, you have to know that. That being said, like, I don't think we throw out like Schenkerian analysis just because Schenkerian himself might have been like a crazy dude or a racist guy or whatever. We would lose like basically every philosopher we'd have to throw out if we were getting rid of like racist people. I think it's really good to incorporate other aspects of theory from other cultures into our understanding of music theory. And anybody that studied music should just agree with that, just because like it enriches your own musical vocabulary and it gives you a better understanding of like the things that you appreciate. So whether it's through other tempered systems, like people that don't use like our 12-tone scale, whether it's through other ways of like organizing music, I think it's good to study all these things. It gives you like a better appreciation for your own art, and then it helps you like diversify and understand other people's ways of interpreting and hearing and performing music as well. I think all of that's like really good.
May I hop in on that for a quick moment?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. So I just wanted to say that I 100% agree with everything you just said. Recently, it seems that in the past couple of years or so, ethnomusicology departments have been gaining a lot of traction in universities. So we're seeing a trend in that direction. Mm-hmm. We're also seeing more recently interest in like pop music theory or types of music theory that are supposed to be describing more contemporary types of music, which is, I think, a good thing.
Which is absolutely a good thing. I don't know why music departments, like, there are people that have made it through their senior year of music education that are performance majors and don't have like a set list that they could play if they were to go gig with like a local group or whatever. Like, they've never memorized like basic pop charts before. Like, if you ask them to play shit, they'll pull out like a fucking blue book or like that's all they have. And it's like, oh my God, like, how do you not know any contemporary music? Like, what is wrong with you? And it's bewildering to me that this falls under so many jazz departments too, where the entire evolution of that music was in fucking shady, seedy fucking clubs and stuff. And it's been relegated to like museum status in terms of how people use it. It is absolutely insane to me that you can go through so many music departments and I can get a guy to break out like a very complicated analysis of a whole fucking piece where they've got the secondary dominance and all the key changes are absolutely correct. And if I give them like, oh, well, why does pop music sound the way they do? It's like, well, I don't know. Like, what? Like, they're just lost. They have no idea. Like, that lack of understanding of pop music is criminal if you're teaching theory or if you're studying it. Man, that drives me crazy. I totally cut you off. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, 100%. I don't know if you followed this at all, but a couple of years back when Kendrick Lamar won the Pulitzer Prize, the overall reaction from the traditional like classical music community was the most cringe thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen like even musicians that I ultra respect. Pat Metheny. Metheny. It's right, Metheny, right? I think I'm pronouncing it right.
Metheny, I think.
Metheny?
Whatever.
Pat, okay. I love his group. I love a lot of his pieces. The guy is a super talented musician. And him railing super fucking hard on Kenny G is one of the most cringe things I ever heard in my life. This was like 10 years ago, I remember, because everybody in my jazz department was so happy, like, yeah, fuck, because I was a sax major, so everybody fucking hates Kenny G. And it's like, well, listen, if at the end of the day you guys are playing music that nobody in society fucking cares about, and this other guy found a way to take your instrument, your horn, and make it palatable to the masses, maybe you need to listen to a little bit more of him and figure out, like, well, what is he doing that people like, instead of insisting, you know, that everybody listen to, you know, your 45th rendition of Take 5 or something. You know, figure out something new. Jesus. And that's why I really love groups like Snarky Puppy and Bad Bad Not Good. Like, these are people that are like like trying to move jazz into like a more contemporary area and make it more like understandable or appealable to normal people. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Or incorporating it into newer genres, like much of Brain Feeder's category, for example, or catalog. Yeah.
Why do you think so many people say that they don't like jazz?
Because a lot of it is older music that you just don't really have an ear for. Like, our ears change over time. You know, if I were to play like a lot of newer music to people in, you know, like in classical era, like Mozart and Baroque, like Haydn, if I were to go back and play them like newer shit, they would hear it and be like, I just don't understand it all. Like, I don't have the ear for it. I think you have to develop an ear for jazz. But also, when a lot of people think of jazz, like, and people are like, oh, you need to listen to jazz, they're gonna give you some fucking late Coltrane album or some very esoteric, like some fucking Dexter Gordon bebop shit, or like something that's very hard to understand. But everybody likes Cowboy Bebop's soundtrack, right? Well, what is that, right? That's like big band music, you know? And big band music was specifically like, well, what is jazz music that a normal person would want to listen to and like kind of dance to or like jive with, you know? Like, that's like, there are forms of jazz out there that I think anybody could listen to, be like, oh wow, this is awesome. But for some reason, when people talk about jazz, they just want to talk about shit that was made, you know, like 40 years ago, and not think about anything new. Like, yeah.
Yeah. There's also a lot of
probably a lot of
contemporary
snobbery.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, what was that?
Sorry, there's a lot of snobbery, I think, with jazz and classical music as well.
Yes.
Probably factors into it.
I was just going to say there's a lot of contemporary artists who are working in all sorts of genres, but who come from like a very rigorous jazz background. And I think it's a misnomer to call what they're doing not jazz, even if they're incorporating it into something that's more, you know, fresh.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully we didn't bore everyone who's not into music, but that was cool. Littner had a question getting back to the politics stuff. Littner, you're unmuted about BreadTube.
Hey, it's me, Yoko. I hope you're doing well, Destiny. So I just wanted to ask, do you think that the BreadTube phase of YouTube is going to face a similar fate just as a skeptic community?
Yeah, it'll die eventually. Thank God, I'm counting the days. Hopefully it'll probably be a little bit faster than the skeptics too, since leftists purity test the fuck out of each other so much. But yeah,
that's really cancer.
Counting down the days for this shit to be done. Hopefully the age of the neoliberal is next, or something like that I'm a little bit more relevant in. Because damn, this BreadTube socialist shit is fucking cancer.
Yeah, I get that. People like Non-Compete and other types of BreadTubers. Yeah. All right, thanks, man. Hope you have a good day.
Yeah, have a good one, buddy.
All right, Faded had a question about Act Utilitarian.
Hey, what's up, buddy? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So Destiny, do you consider yourself more of an act utilitarian or a rule utilitarian? And how do you reconcile this with your egoism that you seem to have an interest in?
I mean, I'm a rule utilitarian, and I reconcile it because I think egoism is more of like a meta-ethical position, and utilitarianism is more of a normative ethical position. So egoism is like, what good aims do I guess, look towards? And then the normative position is like, how do we maximize those ends? So I use utilitarianism to do that, I guess, is how I view it.
Okay, one more thing. How many times do you think you say wait in a debate on average?
I don't know if I do it as much anymore, but I know I used to a lot, and I know a lot of other people knew. You're talking like wait, like that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much. I don't know. I haven't thought about it much. I don't know if I still do that like super commonly, but I know I used to a lot more, and I know a lot of other people do now. So.
Yeah.
How would you recommend? Sorry, Faded. How would you recommend like people fix, you know, certain vocal things like that, right? Like I say right and like all the time, and it's really annoying.
You just have to be aware of it and then make a deliberate effort to stop doing it. If I'm aware,
okay.
So like when you just said that you say like a lot or stuff, so now I'm thinking about it. It's better when you're in a conversation, if you think you're going to say a word like that, to just stop for a second and say I just said it. Have a little pause, and don't say anything, and then finish your sentence. And that usually sounds better than just filling the air with like. But it's something you have to deliberately think about. Otherwise, you'll just fall into it. Because as conversations go, we tend to want to fill the space. We usually don't want to give the person a chance to talk, because if they do, then they'll cut us off. So we will try to say something like rather than have a moment of silence while we think about what we want to say next, because other people will jump in.
Yeah.
Yep, that's very true. Faded, I think you had something else to say.
I agree with that previous thing, and I just have one last thing to say. Is there like a threshold to how much you say wait to where you'd be considered a beta male?
Good one. I don't know. Good question.
Amazing. That's all I got.
Okay. Mugen Godslayer had a question about statements.
So my question was about cancel culture. So do you think the statement we should as a society care less about race and we should lower the bar on what is considered racist are contradictory, or are they irreconcilable or not?
Should we lower the bar on... Wait, what was the first?
What is considered racist? Basically, it's to be read under the lens of cancel culture, because, you know, we should lower the bar on what is considered racist to not cancel people.
I mean, I think we should just not cancel people. We can still acknowledge that actions are racist, but that doesn't mean we have to, like, cancel somebody, you know?
I mean, the way I see it, if we cancel people about, you know, racist statements, I mean, statement that can be perceived as racist, and it's caring about race in a way, you know?
Well, but I mean, we should probably care about race, or at least the impact that race has to society. It's probably a pretty important thing to do, I think. I don't think most people disagree with that.
Yeah, I don't really agree about that, you know.
What if people are facing, like, racial discrimination? Don't you think that's something we should...
No, that's not the way I meant it. It's more like people tend to, you know, point out racial differences and stuff like that.
What the differences in
It's not a
discrimination?
problem when
What do
it's
you mean?
not in terms of discrimination, but like if you're, it can be. Don't you think it can be like if? I mean, you have gone into a record saying you actually use the N-word, so I don't know if you would do that. But sometimes when there's a black person in a minority in a white majority background, for example. I mean background. I mean what do you call it? Environment. Then it can be kind of. It can make you kind of anxious and you know, anxious and maybe it's just maybe it's not that important. I don't know. I mean, sorry.
Or yeah, I guess I'm just trying to understand what. I mean, in terms of lowering the bar for what we consider racist, I don't think we should cancel people.
I mean, I think especially in the leftist communities, people will kind of agree that if you care too much about race, I mean, I'm not even sure if it's just leftist, because it kind of happens to rightists as well, when it's like, oh, you guys are the real racists because you found something to be kind of a racial issue when there was none, you know. I don't know if I'm.
Yeah, I mean, I understand, like. So I'm thinking I'm like nibbling around the edges of your question. Racism and all sorts of things can be good to look at, but can also be weaponized in negative ways. Let me put it that way. Like, it's good to be aware of race and racism and problems that exist in society, but there are going to be a lot of people that will just jump to call somebody racist, or jump to condemn somebody for something they said, even if it's not necessarily racist, or even if it's not relevant. Same thing with class issues. I think it's really important to be aware of class issues in the United States. There are a lot of people that will jump, though, to blame something on class that might not necessarily be about class, because it's like their pet topic or whatever. So, I mean, I think it's good to be aware of these things. I do think that they get misused, probably sometimes, or a lot even. Yeah, I don't know if that's a satisfying answer or not.
So you would think that it's better to not jump to
Megan,
extremes?
we'll have to move on.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah,
We
no
gotta
problem.
get through some questions.
Thank you. I liked talking to you, by the way.
All right, I love you. Be careful.
Okay, Debate Lord had a question. Why did you say that the only way to get Joe Manchin to vote for something he didn't want to would be would be to threaten his electability, but Joe Biden was able to convince him to vote for the COVID relief bill just by giving him concessions.
Because the COVID relief bill is probably something that you don't want to be on record as disrupting, and there's probably way more broad support for a COVID relief bill among his voter base than there would be among like a 15 an hour minimum wage, would be my guess.
Cool. Next question we have is from ARC. They wanted to ask a question about activism.
Yeah, hi Destiny, great to talk to you. Love the content. I was going to ask, do you think that the culture of online debate or debate bro is more harmful or helpful to political engagement or advocacy?
Man, it really depends. I think that in some ways debate bro culture is really toxic. I think is it called sea lioning? Does anybody know what I mean when I say that?
No, I've never heard that before.
Like, if you're having a conversation in a group and some guy just shows up and he just wants to debate you on like everything. He's like, wait, what do you mean when you say that? And you just like, that type of cancerous shit is not good for sure. However, somehow people found a way to take debate bro to mean anytime somebody challenges on my beliefs ever, they're a debate bro, which I think is ultra cancerous. So I would say that quote unquote debate bro culture can be pretty toxic and shitty when it's just like people that are just trying to be either contrarians or that just want to argue or debate you or hammer you down on like every single little point. I think that stuff like that is bad for sure. But the fact that people have found a way to like use that as an excuse to never engage with opposition thought, I think is equally bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been called a debate bro.
Yeah, like you'll challenge
before.
somebody will say something really fucking stupid. You'll be like, wait, hold on, what do you mean? Like, and they're like, I'm not going to defend what I said to you. And it's like, okay, well, you have a public platform and you're like spewing this bullshit. I get whatever. Okay, fine. People just use it as a way to shield themselves from criticism. Debate bro is like, you just say that and you automatically win an argument, or you don't even have to have an argument, I guess. Which for some people is okay. Like, I don't expect a normal person on Twitter to want to engage like in that type of, behavior all the time. Like, that's fine. I'm sympathetic or empathetic, I guess, to that type of thing. No, sympathetic. But if you're a public figure and you are putting out like your hot political takes all the time and they're incredibly controversial and they're really shitty and you never want to discuss them with another person or engage with any criticism at all, and you say, oh, well, I'm not going to deal with the debate bros. I don't know. It just seems like, okay. It sounds like that's just the excuse that you use to shield yourself from any and all criticism.
I completely agree there. Plush had a question. How did you get started and what did you do before political streaming, and why did you feel the need to jump into the public sphere of politics?
I think I was a semi-professional StarCraft 2 player is like what I was most known for probably. And why did I get involved? I think that especially around the Trump election time, I kind of saw that the conversations relating to politics were just so bad, and I thought I could just come in and provide like a little bit of a better, like, oh, maybe we can have some better conversations related to this stuff. And so that was kind of my initial naive hope of getting involved in things. And yeah.
How did it pan out?
99% of my conversations are complete and total dog shit because people are just unbelievable.
So why do you continue to do it?
I mean, I come from like a very combative background on the internet, so it's fun for me. I can still enjoy that. Like, that's still content for me, I guess, or enjoyable for me to participate in.
Runaway Feline had a question about unpragmatic leftists.
Yeah, so I saw that Destiny usually talk about pragmatic leftists or people who believe in more collectivist social and political structures, things like things that got popular over the last probably decade, Marxist philosophies, and you're always talking about them being uneducated and having to, I guess, stagger and stun actual pragmatic policies to be passed in the USA. Is that correct?
I think so. I don't know if I heard the first part of that, but probably, sure. People that are like incredibly idealistic and then will like not accept anything less than the ideal that they aim for. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I've also seen, I guess, I'm not sure if it's still your friend on the Liberal on Twitter, tweeting about uneducated, not having to blame uneducated political people in the USA for the fall of Bernie Sanders, because Bernie Sanders was doing really good until obviously he people dropped out, and that he, got fucked because he's not a kind of a centrist left. person. So, and they're kind of uneducated in the political spectrum, yet you don't want to blame them, but blame people who are, I don't know, I guess stankies for not.
Wait, who do I not want to blame? Let me just be clear on this.
So I saw you, I guess, tweet on your Twitter that we should not be blaming the politically uneducated people in the USA for the fall of Bernie Sanders.
Oh, sure, okay.
Yeah, so even though Bernie Sanders is more progressive and more, he isn't like a fucking, he's not a tanky, and you just there's a bit of a disconnect there where we're like, okay, so there's two uneducated political people, but one of them is like so unpragmatic and one of them just don't know what's going on. Shouldn't we be educating both sides? But you usually just say, hey man, these tankies are fucking dumb. They don't know
You should
anything
educate
about
everyone, I
economy.
think. Yeah, of course. Wait, do you think I disagree with that, or?
No. So, I'm just not sure where you are criticizing, the more left-leaning people for being uneducated rather than the centrist people for saying.
Well, I'm not.
okay,
It's not
whatever,
really just that I'm criticizing them for being uneducated. It's that I'm criticizing them for being like willfully uneducated. Like these people don't like. The problem is they come on to online platforms and then they like claim to have the answer and they want to give their answers to everything and they want to like make educational videos and shit, but they're just dumb as rocks. Like there's a whole lot. I have a far less responsibility for an average voting person than I would for somebody who's trying to make educational videos that doesn't know how like the stock market works, but wants to talk about how they would reform an entire society.
All right. Oh, cool. I see.
Thanks for your question, Runaway.
Yeah.
Okay, Pac had a question. Why do you think so many streamers on the left, like Vosh, etc., jump to the pejoratives, Nazi, racist, sexist, etc., instead of debating the merits of the often dumb right-wing talk points? Is it just a lazy way to dunk on the right? If so, why do you do this? Or why don't you do it more often if it's better for optics?
Because the idea when you start calling everybody a fascist or a racist or a Nazi, I just think it's dumb and it takes away from what those words mean, and then it makes the conversation so much less productive. So I personally don't like that kind of stuff. I think it's stupid, but obviously it's effective and people love to feel that way. Yeah.
Okay, Samantha had a question about platforms. Samantha, I'm gonna unmute you. You there?
Oh yeah, I didn't know I was gonna ask it, but go ahead. So Destiny, hi again. Do you think content creators with the large platforms and communities should be able to be held accountable if their communities start exhibiting a pattern of problematic behavior, such as like racism, sexism, transphobic or homophobic attacks on maybe other content creators? And what can we kind of do about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, you have like a lot of control over your community. Like you can moderate it in certain ways. The way that you behave will probably dictate a lot of how they behave. And then you can kind of set expectations for them as well and talk to them about it.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Scissors had a question about being a detriment.
So you said that people should be compelled to do good as long as it's not like a big detriment to themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what qualifies as detriment is like very subjective, right? And it kind of varies from like society to society.
Mm-hmm.
Like for instance, in the US, I think just having a car is seen as a necessity where, like say in India, I think cars are still like largely a luxury. So how would you compel a person like that, like say one in the US, to be like, okay, like do you get what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, it's pretty. I mean, it would vary from region to region and from culture to culture, of course. I don't disagree with that, right?
So how do you have like a universal framework for that?
I mean, like your universal framework would be evaluating. I mean, you'd have to evaluate. I mean, I can't give you like a measure by which like here's how you measure all suffering from like A to B or from A to Z or from like 0 to 1 million. Like I don't know. It would. I mean, you'd have to vary this like person by person, I guess, right? But yeah, I mean, like broadly speaking, that we can understand that there's probably like, even if it's hard to say like what's worse, giving up working on Friday or giving up like having a car available to you on Wednesday, like that might be a hard question to answer. But like the question of like, should we compel people to donate their kidneys, you know, against their will? That's probably an easier question to answer, right? Like there's going to be some sliding scale of what's acceptable.
Yeah, I can see that it's certainly like a scale. Like say there was like an advanced society that's more advanced than the US, where like having a mansion is like seen as a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so how would you, in the US, then you would say like, okay, you shouldn't go for a mansion. You should use your money in like more productive ways to help society. Right?
So if in the US, if having a mansion was seen as a necessity.
No, like say in a more advanced society, like hypothetically that happens, right? Just having a mansion. So like say now, right now in the US, you would say if you have like a lot of money, you shouldn't go for like luxuries and you should more like look to help people, right?
Yeah, generally, yeah. To a reasonable
Like,
amount. I don't think you should
what if
forego
there
like
were-
every single luxury, but yeah, go on.
Like what if there was a society where like just having a mansion was a luxury? Like would you go to that society and say no?
I mean, no, it would probably
you should
change
do
based on the society, I would imagine. It would be relative to whatever the expectations or norms were of that society, right? So like maybe 20 years ago, maybe you could say like maybe it'd be better to help somebody rather than have like high-speed internet, whereas today high-speed internet is probably more of a demand. So like those standards would change over time, I think.
So it's more like subjective changes from society to society. Is that
Yeah,
it?
or relative to different societies, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Retito had a question about the Bolivian coup.
Yeah, I had a question if your position on the Bolivian situation has changed at all. Like, do you still think that it shouldn't be considered an attempted coup? Not, successful, obviously. Or has that changed?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think all the concerns that were brought up initially were incredibly legitimate. Yeah.
Okay, so you're going with the I forgot what the document you looked over.
The
the OAS report.
Yeah,
like
not OAS, the OAS
okay.
report, yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good to see. Oh, I did want to just say quickly because somebody brought up a while ago the vaccine thing. The difference between vaccines and like prescriptions, why people are worried about like prescriptions like years from now having possible side effects, is that you're taking those for years. With a vaccine, it's one shot and then it's your body's immune system kicking in. So generally it's like infinitesimal probability that would come to affect you years down the road.
Hopefully.
But my other question was about the Gudgel thing. So would you change your opinion on whether or not someone like yourself should get involved in local politics like this if it turns out that he actually does win the mayoral race? Like, if the net effect is still positive in the end?
I don't know. I mean, there's like a ton of ways. Like, I'm not going to dramatically change my opinion based on one experience, right? Oh, this didn't work, time to quit or whatever. I think that's like a loser mentality for looking at life. But I mean, like, there's always like things that you can vary and do differently, like going forward. So, I mean, I think the best thing you can do is anytime you have an adverse situation, you look and see what's happened, and then you try to see if there are lessons you can learn from it, and then you apply that going forward. I mean, I still think there's plenty of places for people to get involved in local political scenes. Even as streamers, I think there's still a lot of unique power that they have there for mobilizing audiences.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, last question I had, just on a philosophical point, the is-ought distinction. Do you think that's like a relevant part of philosophy today? Like, do you think there's anything we can actually meaningfully gain through trying to, like, figure out some way to get an ought from an is, or is that just like...
No, I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, but do you think it is relevant even in discussion? Like, does that affect, like people's philosophical like points? Is it ever useful to bring up?
Nope, I just say, well, let's just assume we can do it and then go from there. I think pretending to like solve it, like this is like my big criticism of Sam Harris, pretending that you've solved it somehow, I don't think it's even worth talking about.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Yep, thank you very much.
Yep, have fun, be careful.
Thanks, Bertino. Okay, Mac had a question about a very non-controversial topic. Is it morally permissible for Israel's government to evict the Palestinians from the West Bank?
I don't have strong positions on anything related to like territorial claims in that area because that shit is way too complicated. That's all I got for you. I don't have.
I respect the fuck out of that though.
Thanks.
So, all right, let's move on to Hermetic Coconut Husker. Great name. From your perspective, does it appear as if the virtual leftist movement of today, or more specifically BreadTube, is to ascribe okay, someone just deleted that. Mods, you got to stop doing that.
Wait, why are they deleting questions? This would be triggering the fuck out of me.
Yeah, it's driving me nuts. I don't know. Okay, we will move on. Okay, I'm so sorry for whoever had your question deleted there. Many locals feel that tourism is a form of colonization. What is your take on this?
I don't think that's true. I mean, it could be, but not necessarily. I mean, like, it depends on how you run your tourist industry, I guess.
Okay, do you see like any changes to the tourism industry coming out of a post-COVID world?
Not that I can think of. Permanent ones? Not that I can think of. No.
All right. Our dude is priest asked, what is a piece of literature, political or non-political, that was vital to your views?
There's a book. There's a ton of different authors for this book, but it's called Wikipedia.org. What a great website for all newly growing minds.
Yeah. Why do you think like people often shit on Wikipedia? Because I think it's pretty unfair.
I don't know. It's easy you can take a bad opinion from Wikipedia. The super duper in-depth stuff you're probably not going to find in Wikipedia. It's not going to give you the best understanding of things. It's just good for like a cursory overview. You probably also shouldn't use Wikipedia as a substitute for like actual study if you have the discipline to do it. So.
Yep. Force, you had a question? Sorry, I didn't mean to do. Force?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey. Yeah.
Hi. So, my question's for Destiny. So basically, you're a huge fucking faggot. Fuck you, white power.
Whoa, okay.
Wow. Why would you say fuck me and fuck white power in the same sentence, though?
Sorry about that. A big yike. Okay. The mods, if you can ban that person, that would be cool. Let's move on to the meme lord. Thoughts on a federal job guarantee? If you're confused, a federal job guarantee is a public option that supplies voluntary employment opportunities or on demand for all those who are ready and willing to work for a living wage.
I personally am not in favor of federal jobs guarantee. I don't know of many people that are. Meh. So I'm like very meh on it.
Oh, what are your issues with it?
I just don't know if the federal government should be guaranteeing jobs. I don't know if that's like, I feel like when it comes to stuff like employment, unless it's stuff that's very specific to government, I feel like that's better left to market forces for figuring that type of stuff out. Formation and destruction of firms, hiring of employees, and all that. That's like that's just a lot to offload to the government, I think. Or I feel.
Yeah. I remember you mentioned that you don't necessarily respect people based on their correctness or freedom from fault. That is more whether or not a person has thought through their perspective. You center your perspective around maximizing your own happiness. Are there any other frameworks you've come across that you found interesting that may also have worked quite well? Or similarly, if you had to build your framework differently, what would it look like?
I have no idea. My framework is like a hodgepodge amalgamation of a ton of different thoughts and things I've had and influences over my life. So it's hard to... if I knew another framework that I like super respected and would think of, then I would probably just adopt it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was a pretty tough question. I don't know what I would say to that. Jax, you had a question about insults. He asked, why do you need to make hyperbolic insults like subhuman? Couldn't more tame insults be better for your brand?
Boring. People just, I don't know, I like being mean to people sometimes. When they're dumb, I'm mean to them. Fuck it.
Are you worried about like the implications of the word subhuman and what it means?
No, I think that's like really virtue signaling. When people are going to start saying, so like, oh, well, when you say subhuman, that's just like how the Nazis called Jews. So like, no, come on, dude. No, everybody knows I'm not using it that way. I'm not using it against Jewish people. Like, it's a pretty broad and vague thing. Like, anybody can be subhuman. Like, I don't know. I think it's stupid, but whatever.
Yeah, it feels also like one of those internet culture things that people really, they know what you mean on average, right?
No. But if they really want to read negatively into it, then they can. So.
Yeah. ZD, you had a question about an educated Muslim content creator?
Can you please talk to a highly educated Muslim content creator? I normally wouldn't have cared, but especially after the recent Rogan and Jordan Peterson podcast with Ian Hersey, she just blatantly just lied or whatever. And the two I can think of both have degrees in philosophy, so I think the conversations, even if you're not gonna agree, would be better for like a religious discourse or whatever. because normally it's like a Christian perspective. And the two guys are Muhammad Hijab and Hamza Tsortsis, I don't know, some Greek name. And the second question is, do you think it'd be a good idea for a larger streamer like Coach or someone to make like a canvassing company, so you can like funnel volunteers through it, so your name doesn't like stay in the campaign?
I mean, if you want to, but I don't think people would want to join if you weren't too closely associated with it. Like, what are you gonna, like, here's a random political organization that I'm promoting, go join it? I don't know if people would care to join it as much if you weren't.
Do companies like that already exist?
I mean, like, a lot of different campaigns, like, have their own, like, you can sign up to volunteer to work for, like, a particular campaign or something. I mean, like, that exists, but...
Yeah, alright, thanks.
Okay, be careful.
So, I was wondering about, how do you feel about the current nuclear and the future of the nuclear powers in the countries? Do you fear a potential maybe new Cold War with, like, North Korea and maybe Iran now?
How do I feel about new countries having nuclear power? I mean, it feels bad, man, I guess. Like, nuclear proliferation is probably not a good thing. Some people would argue that it feels good, man, because maybe more countries with nukes means less likely for, like, ground invasions and shit. But I mean, I don't know. That's a really, really, really complicated. Like, how do I feel about it in respect to what? Like, should we be seeking to prevent it, or?
Like, what do you feel about countries like Iran and, like, North Korea who doesn't give enough information about their government? Like, do you think there's going to be a new Cold War or anything similar to that?
I have no idea. Maybe I don't know. I just can't. I don't know that. Sorry. I wish I did, but I'm not sure.
All good, man.
Okay. Cynical Finch had a question about critical race theory. You're unmuted, Cynical.
Yeah, thanks for taking me. It's good to talk to you, Destiny. I've been watching you for a long time, like since way back in the Unfiltered days, and man,
Cool.
I missed that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, your most recent video, or maybe there's been another one uploaded since, I don't know, but it was quite the disgruntled Omaha resident that you were kind of debating a little bit there.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of noticed that when he was calling you out on the context of you using racial slurs when you were from that clip when you were talking about the protesters, or the rioters, I should say. That was kind of like a little bit of a critical race theory that he used on you. I was just wondering if you caught it, and if you did, and if you're aware of critical race theory. What's your
Oh, wait, what part of what he said was critical race theory? Can you?
Sure. So, well, it's steeped in
Yeah,
critical
sure.
race theory, I should say. But he called you out for using racial slurs during that one clip, and he basically said that, like, racial slurs should never be used under any circumstance ever. Period.
Oh, sure. Yeah, some people seem to.
And he went on to say, like, because it occupies space for a person of color, and then he accused you of, he's like, if you're willing to do that, then I can guarantee you're looking over your shoulder everywhere you go, waiting for an opportunity to be racist.
Oh, sure. I remember
And
this. Yeah.
I remember when I heard him drop that rhetoric on you, the one thing that resonated with me is I'm not sure if you probably are familiar with the Evergreen riots that broke out back in 2017 at the Evergreen School in Washington.
Refresh my memory.
Most people will say that it surrounded professor at the school, Brett Weinstein.
Oh God. Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Where they wanted to have like the no white kids at school day or whatever.
Yeah, and he kind of tried to peacefully step aside from that, but I mean, that's not what started it. People will say that's what started it. There's a whole lot to that, and I don't want to get into that and waste your guys' time.
Mhm.
But it just seems like, well, I know that, like, a lot of the ideology that allowed some of those protesters to basically overthrow that school, it was very, very well steeped in critical race theory. And it was kind of handed down to them almost in an indoctrination way through one of the professors, one of the faculty members there. It kind of seems like it's spreading more widely through academia and universities and colleges and whatnot, and I'm worried it's kind of toxic. I mean, it is, but I'm worried that if it spreads like that, I mean, it's going to get worse as time passes. So I was just wondering on your overall take on that.
I don't know. I would just have to. I don't know enough about, like, quote unquote critical race theory to like debate that, but I mean I could argue like specific points is what I guess I'd just be interested in arguing. Like for instance, like the idea that you could never ever use a racial slur in any way, like in an academic context or something, in a way that would be acceptable. Like I would push against that. I'd say, well, that's probably pretty dumb.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, cool. Thanks. Fair enough, man. Maybe if you get a chance, just kind of like dip your toes into it. I think you might find an interesting rabbit hole there to go down. But thanks for your time.
Yep. Have fun. Be careful.
Ducker Z was asking, your involvement with the Gudgel campaign, if I understand correctly, was brought down by a small yet dedicated smear campaign. Are there any steps you will take to ensuring that the effectiveness of such campaigns is reduced? If so, what kinds of steps?
I think I named 3 earlier. You can try to separate yourself from the candidate more. You could just campaign for a broader issue more. You can pick out a candidate that you think is a little bit more tenacious, like somebody that doesn't have as much to lose maybe, so they're not going to be bullied around as easily. Like, yeah.
Cool. Nano Theon had a question about monarchy. Interesting topic.
I was wondering if you were opposed to monarchies, even if they exist in a ceremonial sense, such as the UK.
Ceremonial monarchy is probably fine. I don't have a big deal with it.
Even if they, the people who are born into these families are given are treated differently just based on like things that they haven't done themselves.
No, I mean, I don't know. People want to do it. It can be their little sideshow thing. I don't care that much about it. It's not something I think about much. I mean, everybody's going to be treated way differently based on the family they're born into and shit, right?
Yeah, but I mean, more particularly with the royal families, because there's taxpayer money goes into them, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be in favor of instating that in like the United States, but like if you have a history of it and everything, I don't know, maybe there's a stronger argument for it.
Okay.
Thanks for the question. Carl had a question. Carl, you're unmuted. About engaging politics.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. I hope this hasn't been asked before. I came in late. I'm just wondering, with your canvassing and your in-person politics, what's logistically been the most difficult part of engaging in it? And I understand if you don't want to talk about like your stuff that's going on right now.
Well, nothing's going on now, so the most difficult part is probably the money part. Like, depending on what you're trying to do, it can be expensive to get a lot of people in an area. That can be pretty difficult, and then like the coordination part as well. So like you probably need to hire people to help you like take care of, you know, handing out responsibilities to people and managing different people as well. Like getting all that on the ground set up is a learning experience for sure. Just like managing large groups of people basically, and learning how to delegate responsibilities to them.
Did you find like a certain sort of like management software or something like useful for that, or did you just kind of delegate that to other people and they used what they used?
No, I don't think management software came down to it. Like I did everything via like Google Docs and email and stuff. I don't think it ever came down to anything that specific.
Okay.
It was more just finding like good help basically.
Yeah, okay. And do you think that there are things that kind of preclude low-income Americans from engaging in politics? Like, do you have advice for low-income Americans other than just get involved?
No, I mean, I think you just have to like, it depends on like how low income we're talking. Like if you've got like a few hours every week to go down to like your city hall or city council meetings or whatever and pay attention to that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, that's a way that like most people can get involved.
Okay, yeah, I was just wondering if you had any insight into that, because you would actually like run into problems and have that sort of thing come up, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. If you're willing to just like,
if I didn't have money, I wouldn't be able to do anything with that.
yeah, well, like from my level, it's really hard. Or you need money, but that's because I'm like literally organizing a ton of stuff. But if you just want to be somebody that participates, like all for that, you just have to show up, right? And as long as you've got your ear to the ground, and you're paying attention to local issues, like you can like volunteer for campaigns, you can show up at your city hall meetings or your local Facebook groups, or if you're in college, there's like sororities or fraternities or stuff, things that have like political committees. Like, yeah, you can always, there's always stuff there for you to participate in if you're willing to do it.
Do you think there's an equity issue with people who are really low income and just don't have the time? Or do you think that anyone has like a couple hours a week to sort of get involved?
I mean, there can be an equity issue there, sure. But I think that if you want to set aside the time for it, I think most people can do it. Obviously, at the very, very, very low end of that spectrum, you can't, because all of your time is going to surviving, but...
Yeah. Okay, awesome. That's all I had.
Okay.
The real Zizmon had a question about gaming.
Yep, hello. So this is a bit of a meme topic, but why do you think League of Legends is better than Dota?
Because I have more experience in League of Legends than Dota.
I mean, surely that means that you can't really say that League is better than Dota.
I don't know if I've ever said League is better than Dota. I just don't want to play Dota.
I mean,
want to learn a whole new
okay,
game.
so I've heard you say multiple times that like whenever people try to talk about like how Dota's better, they usually just like laugh online and just say like, oh yeah, look at TI, and I don't know.
I mean, I usually when I'm arguing against that, it's that I'm usually arguing against people that want me to go play it, not against like what's better or not. I don't think. If I ever say League is better, I might have said it in the past, but usually just to trigger people that play Dota in my community.
I mean, yeah, that's fair enough. I actually play both games, so you know.
Okay.
He's saying you're a radical centrist on that. Okay. Mpempo, interesting name, had a question about abortion. Oh, that wasn't a VC. So, Destiny, I understand that you think you used to say that abortion is morally wrong, but you would still be against outlawing it. If it was demonstrated that simply outlawing abortion would significantly decrease abortion rates or stop them from happening entirely, would you still oppose outlawing abortion? More generally, why are you currently against outlawing abortion, and could your stance ever change if certain circumstances changes?
Yeah, I mean, if it would have been shown that like banning it was an effective way of getting rid of it, then I probably would be committed to changing my legality position on it. Although as of recently, I think I'm now in favor of abortion, like 51-49. Like it's a very difficult argument, I think, but I think I'm narrowly in favor of it at the moment.
Would it changed your view on it or moved it?
Yeah, so now I'm in favor. I think morally abortion, I think, is justifiable. I think yeah.
Yeah, but like what was the argument, I guess, that convinced you to move to that position?
I think it's the idea of valuing a conscious experience, I think, and the idea that ending an experience that doesn't exist probably it shouldn't be immoral, I think, is what I'm sitting at right now.
Okay, cool. Lazu asked, do you have any stances on deep ecologist philosophy or ecocentrism?
Ecocentrism or ecologist philosophy? No, I don't think so. I don't even know what half those words mean, I don't think.
Yeah, I've never heard of ecocentrism. I think like deep ecology is just like a very extremist environmental philosophy.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Reluctantly has a question about being a libertarian.
Oh yeah, thanks Destiny for like being here. I mean, I disagree with you like on pretty much every issue, but I've been watching like a lot of your debates recently, especially like the ones with like alt-righters, because I like how you know, you're able to like disprove them and stuff. So I just had a question. You've mentioned like many times that you used to be like a you know, like a Ron Paul libertarian. Wait, let me find my question, sir. Do you still think that the Federal Reserve should be reduced or abolished in its capacity, and do you think it's overstepped its role by controlling inflation? I also had like one other question other than that.
No, I think the Federal Reserve is fine with the job that it does. I don't think it's overstepped anything, no.
Okay, and then I also just like I came kind of late, so sorry if you like already got asked this, but I was just wondering about the filibuster. Do you think it should be like reformed in like yes, it's kind of the same question. Do you think it should be like reformed or abolished in any way?
I don't think the filibuster is necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, I don't think the filibuster is necessarily a bad thing. I know that a lot of people are like really ass mad about it, but I mean, I think that the bigger problem we have is like massive divides in our government that make it impossible for us to work together, and I think that's the real problem that we have.
So yeah, but like would you modify in any way, like maybe change it from like 60 to 55, anything like that?
I think 60 is fine. You can change it to 55 if you want, but I don't know. I think 60 is okay.
Okay, thank you.
Audrey had a question. Destiny, I promise I'm asking this genuinely in good faith, and I'm not trying to do some sort of transphobic gotcha moment. But if both race and gender are social constructs, why is transitioning genders considered valid, but transitioning races is not? I understand they operate a little differently in terms of inheritance between generations, but if you can acquire the lived experience of being a woman by having society treat you and perceive you as a woman, could you not technically do the same by altering your appearance to mimic another race? Thanks.
I mean, I don't think that my understanding is that I don't think there is an internal experience of being a race. or at least I've never heard of that. Whereas you do have an internal experience of being a gender.
Okay. That's a simple answer to that. Okay, Benny had a question about ethical egoism.
My question is, have you recently gone through some sort of like process of like creating your own values in like a Nietzschean way or something?
Some recent
or stepped away?
No, I don't think so. Not anything different than how I have in the past.
Have you stepped away from like ethical egoism, like definitely,
No, I
or
think egoism is base as fuck.
True.
Destiny, thank you so much. Okay,
bye.
See ya.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.
Good job. Good job, guys. We did it.